Now let's look at combination of errors in this particular video. Now when I say combination, meaning what? See, you have 4 basic arithmetic operations, correct? That is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. These are the 4. If you include the exponents, that becomes 5 basic operations in arithmetic. Now let's look at what errors do we get when you add, when you subtract, when you multiply, divide, or whenever you raise it to certain power. Alright? Now first look at addition and subtraction. Okay, this is the first combination of error. That means we are looking at error when there is sum or difference of the physical quantities. Alright? Now let's consider that A and B are physical quantities. Alright? Now sum of them will become A plus B, isn't it? Now let's say there is an absolute error of delta A and delta B. Alright? Now what will you get? You will get A plus or minus delta A, B plus or minus delta B. This is going to be the error in A and B, correct? Now what are we trying to calculate? We are trying to calculate the error in the sum, isn't it? Correct? So what do you get now? You get S plus or minus delta S is equal to A plus or minus delta A plus B plus or minus delta B. Correct? Now when you take this, now you can reduce this. When you take this mathematical formula and when you reduce it, you will get delta S is equal to delta A plus or minus delta B. If you take the difference of two quantities, that is, say D is equal to A minus B. Now we'll use the same thing, correct? If you use this one, you are going to get delta D is equal to delta A plus or minus delta B. Or in general, we just say that delta D is equal to delta A plus delta B. Now when you take sum or the difference, in general, you can write plus or minus delta Z is equal to delta A plus delta B. That means, to summarize, what do we have here? That whenever you have two quantities, when you add or when you subtract, the absolute errors has to be added. Okay, you will always get delta A plus delta B itself. Okay, the absolute errors has to be added. Alright, now this is for sum and difference. The next one what you have is for product or quotient. Okay, that's where you multiply and divide, isn't it? Now again we have the same thing. A and B are two physical quantities. Okay, delta A and delta B are the absolute errors, whatever you have. Now for product, what do you have? P is equal to A into B, correct? Now you have to multiply, isn't it? So P plus or minus delta P is equal to A plus or minus delta A into B plus or minus delta B, correct? Look at the next step. You multiply it. Now what you do? You divide this by AB. Basically, you're dividing by P. And what is P? AB, correct? When you do this, this is what you get. When you compare the LHS and RHS, now what do you get? Delta P by P is equal to delta A by A plus delta B divided by B, correct? That means, what is delta A by A? Isn't it relative error? Isn't it? So to summarize what you have in product or quotient, if you have two quantities which are, which you are doing a mathematical operation of multiplying or dividing, then the error what you get is equal to the sum of their relative errors. Okay, in sum or difference it was absolute. Here it is going to be relative error. Alright. The next basic operation in arithmetic is what? Raising to the power of some number, correct? Isn't it? Now let's take an example. Let's say you have a physical quantity A. Now where you will get Z is equal to A square. Now what is A square? A into A, correct? A into A. Now if you take delta Z, that is you are trying to calculate the error. Now what do you get? If you take the relative error, delta z by z is equal to delta a by a plus delta a by a, which is 2 times delta a by a, correct? Now what is the error? The error is you're taking the power and you're multiplying that with the relative error, correct? Isn't it? Now if I do the same thing with n number of powers, like whatever you have the example here, then what do? You add all the relative errors. Whether you are multiplying or whether you are dividing, what you are going to do here is that you are going to add the errors. See the power, with what power are you raising it? You take that power, multiply it with the relative error and add all the relative errors. This is going to give you the error whenever you are raising it to some power key. Alright. Now these are the combination of errors, whether you add, subtract, multiply, divide, or if you are going to raise it to some power, whatever you do, you will have to start adding the errors. Okay. Now once you have understood all these errors, let's try to see how we can practically apply it in about 1 or 2 examples.